Promises burn, ashes in the wind. Scripts they wrote, soaked in sin. Voices silenced, buried deep, but the roots grow strong, they never sleep. Oh, steel and greed won't build a home, can't kill the truth with a hollow throne. Hands will rise, clenched and fixed, history's patterns, they won't be missed. Echoes linger, they're drilled home. Can't kill the truth with a hollow drone. Hands will rise, clenched in fists. History's patterns, they won't be missed.
Well, hello and welcome to Truth Podcast. Me, John Yates, and this evening we have a guest, Councillor Ron McDowell of the TUV, and Ron is also the Deputy Leader of the TUV. So tonight what we want to do is we want to scratch the surface with Ron, and we want to understand why that it is that Ron has become involved in politics, and what it is that is really close to his heart in terms of standing up for the community, for the constituents to which elected Ron into office. And well, I'm just going to play a short video clip so that we can kick off, so that we can start off the chat with Ron. And this is something that I seen Ron speaking about just a few months ago. And I have to say, this little video clip really grabbed my attention.
I'm thinking a wee bit about immigration more this week than perhaps I have in the last couple of weeks, specifically due to the meeting in the Shankill Road the other night, and also thinking of a report that was published by Professor Matt Goodwin 2 days ago, that was published in the Times newspaper, who said that with his research he reckoned that by the end of the century whites would be in the minority in the United Kingdom. So what does that mean for us? What does that mean in the streets? What does that mean for housing? What does that mean for the economy? And when it boils down to it, what does it mean for the Shankill Road? Well, we've already seen immigration coming into the Shankill Road. We've seen issues that comes with it. We've seen issues with migrants coming in who have a different sense of values, who have a different sense of law and order. We've seen the guy walking the length of Boyd Street exposing himself, which shocked people. We've seen the guy at the end of Canmore Street exposing himself, which shocked people. We've heard similar stories in other places in the Shankill of antisocial behaviour, of basically being bad neighbours. And also we look at the housing strain that causes as well. Now the Belfast agenda, you may or may not have heard of it, is a plan to bring in 66,000 new citizens into the city, not into Northern Ireland, but into Belfast by 2035. 66,000 people into Belfast by 2035. And you think of how that will be a dramatic change, that will be a swift change in culture, in values, in traditions, in areas overnight.
Ron, I'll just remove it there. I just really wanted to give people a feel for some of the stuff that you're speaking about. Now, I'm not really wanting to get into too much, about the current events that you're hearing on the news today, but I really want to just show that you're a man that you're not afraid to speak up for what it is that you see happening in front of your very eyes, like many politicians right around the United Kingdom. And I think that that's a fault with politicians and certainly the political system right now, is that whilst that they can see clear-cut cases of things happening from within our communities, whilst that the mainstream media can see these things happening also, well, everyone but one seems to want to turn a blind eye to the actual problems that people can see right before their very eyes happening. But you don't do that. The TUV doesn't do that. Timothy Gaston doesn't do that. Jim Allister doesn't do that. And I think that's a real testament to yourself, to the likes of Timothy, to the likes of Jim Allister, the TUV as a party, and I believe right now the only party for the people here in Northern Ireland. So I just wanted to really give people a feel for who that Ron McDowell is. So Ron, really, I want you to explain to people, when's your earliest recollection of you becoming involved in politics? And I'll remind you to unmute yourself as you go, Ron.
Thanks, John. And I actually smirked a wee bit when you played that clip. I didn't know you were going to play it. And that was probably 3 or 4 days before all the trouble blew up in Ballymena. And the press, being the press, tried to blame me in making that video for all the violence that we've seen unfolding across Northern Ireland. That's what comes with trying to keep your ear to the ground. You're trying to sense the things in the community that you represent. I mean, you sense that things are getting to boiling point. It's incumbent upon you to speak up. And I think I can remember a quote that Frank Mitchell said after I had released that video. He said, "Ron McDowell, who doesn't see the benefit of having Catholics on the Antrim Road or non-whites on the Shankill Road." And that's how the media will blacken your name. And I found that grossly offensive. So I got a lot of pressure over that. But nonetheless, we said we'd speak out, and that's what we'd do. But my earliest recollection of being involved in politics, I think anybody who loves their culture and their heritage are always involved in politics. I mean, I was a young Orange man and a bandsman before I was into politics. And if you care about your people, you care about where you come from, you care about your heritage and traditions, things that have been passed to you by your dad, things that you know are good, you'll care about them. And when they come under attack, you'll try to defend them. And I suppose that was my earliest involvement in politics, not necessarily with a political party, but a case of the sash my father wore and standing up for the things and the heritage that was given to me, John.
Yeah, Ron, most people from where we came from, in and around sort of, you were Shankill Road, North Belfast, is that right?
Yeah. Yes, Ainsworth Street.
Yeah,
Born in the Wheelhouse class before they were knocked down.
Yeah. Well, as I say, I sort of was born and reared in the Shankill Road also. And yeah, I mean, how could you not grow up there and not in some way, shape or fashion become involved in the Orange Lodges as a junior? I think it was number 5 district, if I'm right at the time, was it? Yeah. And, and again, personally, I mean, I went on to sort of join with some bands, and I see that one of the bands that I was involved with up around the Shankill, the Sons of Ulster, Shankill Road, remember as a young man, 12, 13 years of age, I think I've still got some sort of hearing problems as a result of being placed beside the bass drum, playing the little flute, as I was walking along. But, those were the days. And really what I'm saying is that growing up in the area that we grew up in, you sort of ended up either following that fraternity or maybe ending up in it, to which obviously that we did. So Ron, again, I'm just wanting to sort of take you on, and again, I know that you were as part of the DUP previously, and could you tell me what was it that drove you to get involved with politics and join a political party?
It was care, and my first dipping my foot into politics first was actually first with the TUV. They had formed up in the Shankill area, and I had joined the TUV back in the early days. But shortly after that, they ceased to exist in the Shankill. They simply broke up, and that was when Jolene Bunting and that joined the party. And the branch ceased to exist. So I didn't really have any involvement in politics. But it was a meeting with Nelson McCausland in my wee church. He came to the same church as me, and it was just a case of helping him out. And then the idea that you could have your voice heard. And I was always keen to make unionism a cause rather than a job. And I think that was always the difference between unionism and republicanism. Republicanism always seemed like a cause. They were always prepared to take to the streets. Activism, if you want that. And unionist politics tended to just go from election to election and didn't involve itself in street level activism. And I think that that's imperative, and it was something that was to the detriment of our people. So I joined the DUP, and that was something I always tried to push for from inside, was that we need to get away from just merely a small branch of 40 people for the whole of North Belfast involved in politics, but rather we needed to be a cause, and we needed to be a people. We need to be activists for that cause. And that was the real reasons that I got heavily involved in politics at that time.
My fault. We're muting and unmuting mics here. My fault, and we'll get sort of better at it as we go. But just for the purpose of understanding for the people, Ron, me looking back on your history, I've known you for quite some time. When you were involved in the DUP, I think you walked out of the DUP meeting. From my recollection, was it at a hotel in Shaw's Bridge for some reason or other? I mean, did you have a problem at that time? Was there a direction that they were going that you maybe didn't think that your conscience would let you go in?
I wasn't actually at the meeting, but it was the New Decade, New Approach. It was around that time, and there was talk that the DUP were going to endorse the Irish Language Commissioner, an Irish Language Act. That they were going to go back into the government with Sinn Féin again, and I thought that was a real mistake. Now, you take no pleasure in hindsight being a wonderful thing. We take no pleasure in politics when we're right, when it's to the detriment of our cause. But looking back, we can see where the Irish language movement has went for republicanism, and how it's been weaponized across the city, how it's used as a stick to beat us with. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back for me, and I left at that time. But one of the things that happened around the meeting of the DUP then was that they held a meeting, and what they had said was they weren't there to take the opinions of the members. They were telling us the decision that they had came to, the hierarchy. So there was no vote for grassroots members, or no voice for grassroots members to say, hang on, we disagree with this direction of travel. And if I can't have my voice, well, if I can't speak up against things like the Irish language, well, it's not the party for me. And when I seen how aggressive that was, and how they then nominated the joint First Minister's position and thrown in Sinn Féin, well then it certainly wasn't the direction of travel that I was going in.
Yeah. So sticking with that sort of subject in and around the sort of New Decade, New Deal, again, we were involved, yourself, myself, and other people, when we were actually rallying for the union. And this is something that not a lot of people may know, is that, people from right across the board actually got behind the DUP, no matter why they were TUV or any other party. And they got behind the DUP for the general election in December the 12th of 2019. I mean, Jim Allister, I know, went up even to Fermanagh and done some canvassing for, what is it they call him? Tom Elliott from the UUP. So people in general, I mean, that was as close to unionist unity that we would have achieved in the last number of years, when people were all agreeing that we needed to get behind unionists that had a chance of winning seats and really going forward into Westminster. So there were certain promises made, maybe not to you, Ron, but certainly to ourselves as a group, that the DUP wouldn't actually do things. And I didn't come on here really to kick the DUP, but I really want to chart the course of what has happened in our politics, and really why that it is, and we'll come to that very soon, why that it is that the TUV are actually rising in the polls. And I'll state that again, why that it is that the TUV are rising in the polls. And it's because of years and years and years of broken promises. And we seen that in 2019, when we had assurances that if we got behind them, if we rallied with them, well, there were certain things, without getting into them, that the DUP weren't going to do. And when it came New Decade, New Deal approach time, well, they broke every single promises to us and to the promises that we made to the unionist electorate to get people to vote for them. So, but that sort of stuff comes back on you. And as I say, it's not a kicking match of the DUP. But what I really want to do at this stage, Ron, is that, and I don't have it on the screen, but I'm going to go and look for it and I'll find it fairly quickly, is I want to play something from, maybe two clips from a rally for the Union that was held in the Ulster Hall on the 6th of December in 2019. And I'm sure that you remember that well, because you were a man that was more prominent in my Camry footage when I was taking it than anyone else on that stage, and that'll become apparent soon whenever I pop this little clip up. So if you just bear with me for a second, I'll find this little video clip. Here we go. And here, I'll just talk as I go. I'll talk as I go, because I know that I have it somewhere. Right, I have to go down in here. Bear with me, people. I'm talking to, I never really, well, I did plan to do this here, but I never loaded it. I'm trying to get myself off the hook here. Right, here we go. I can get it in here. In this one, there's a lot of clicking here to get this here. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play this one. Yeah, here we go.
We have been betrayed in the house of our friend. A government which only was a government because unionists put them into office has, in the most dastardly of betrayals, attempted to push this part of the United Kingdom effectively out of the United Kingdom through Boris Johnson's nefarious deal with the EU. Let us all understand what Boris Johnson's deal means. It means that whereas the rest of the United Kingdom has a path to leave the EU, this part of the United Kingdom is to be held captive, annexed into the EU. And the mechanism for doing that, of course, is to effectively leave Northern Ireland, and Northern Ireland alone, within the EU's customs union, to leave Northern Ireland and Northern Ireland alone within the EU's single market. And that effectively means outside our own nation's customs union.
Ron, I'll sort of stop there, and you got to excuse my camera. There seems to be a little problem. As I say, I haven't used this software in over 2 years, but if it goes off, I'll pull that one off and I'll get another one up in a few moments. So we'll bear with it for the moment. But that was the Rally for the Union on the 6th of December in 2019, where about 1,000 people attended the Ulster Hall, and it was a really, really good night. But it was a night with meaning. It was a night of, I'm going to say that you know, I never ever thought that we as unionists would be placed in that sort of a position by our own government. But then again, you know, when I look at history, when I look back at, say, for example, the turn of the century, and I believe that rally on the 6th of December 2019 was actually to replicate something that happened on the 12th of December, just over 100 years before, whenever there was another rally and where unionists felt betrayed in that same site, being the Ulster Hall. And I'm going to mention a few words, Rob, before we go on, and I'll just sort of tell people what I see you doing that evening. But, you know, there was a speech by Carson whenever that he was talking to the Conservative Party. You know, he says that, and I'm going to paraphrase here, that I was only a humble rung in a ladder that helped you people climb into power. And once in power, you kick away the ladder with no concern for the people that placed you in power, or words to that effect, Ron. And, you know, and that's how I felt whenever that the Conservative government were betraying Northern Ireland's part in the Brexit referendum. On the 23rd of June 2016, 17.4 plus million people placed their acts to leave the what I call the EU dictatorial Ponzi scheme. They're my words, and that's not the associate wrong with those words. but certainly that we won that referendum. We were triumphant. Democracy was on our side. It favoured us, and yet we were excluded. And I can remind talking to John Tongue, Professor John Tongue, a professor of politics at the University of Liverpool, not long after on a live stream. And I asked him a serious question. I says, John, when is it ever acceptable when we take part in a referendum and there's four constituent parts to that referendum? And when is it ever acceptable within a democratic process that one part doesn't get the same as the three parts which form part of making up those numbers which were triumphant in that democratic referendum? So Ron in the Ulster Hall, he would have done compare, and a grand job you actually done, Ron, with all your the history of the night. And again, I just tried to explain a little bit about it. But Ron, focusing on those times, what was your thoughts whenever we seen that we had this new decade, new deal, we had the, and I'm going to say it, I'm not going to mince my words, and excuse my camera people, but, we had a betrayal by the DUP with New Decade, New Deal. Then we had a betrayal from the Conservative Party, and it just really seemed that the people of Northern Ireland, that the Protestant Unionist and Loyalist people of Northern Ireland, well, everyone seems to want to betray us, really at will and as and where that they should see fit. And but one thing that has led to, Ron, before that I come on to you giving your take on this, and I'll change my camera whilst to go, but it has served to waken up more and more and more people from within our community. It has served to get more people involved in politics, and it has served for people to change their political allegiances. And that's why we see, and this is something we'll come on to at the later part of this stream, it has served to ensure that the TUV are now
So, which John's trying to sort his camera out there. I think looking back on those times, the rally in the Ulster Hall was the culmination of rallies across Northern Ireland and across Belfast. There was an appetite, as I can remember it, in every Orange Hall in every area of the city for hundreds of people to come together. The ones that we were involved with was in Alexander Park Avenue Orange Hall, and there was hundreds at it. It was mirrored with one in Shankill Spectrum, and there was hundreds at it. But the one in the Ulster Hall, it has to be said, the people in the Shankill, and Stacey Graham should take an awful lot of credit for that, and the people that was behind her for organising the Ulster Hall event. But the thing that for me was special about that was it's the first time I can remember that all shades of unionism seen a common threat and came together. They were really, really fortunate that we had Jim Allister. There was also the PUP was there, Billy Hutchinson, Nigel Dodds of the DUP, and there was also Unionist Party in the audience as well. So it was a coming together of all shades of unionism, and I can remember beforehand there was an awful lot of negotiations around that as well. So people were wondering how the TUV and elements of the PUP would be able to share the platform on that, because obviously their political viewpoints are so far apart. But everything was set aside for the common threat. And that manifested itself, those early meetings in the Ulster Hall manifested themselves years after that in the agreement that was signed at Stormont by all the members of the political parties in Northern Ireland, the PUP, the TUV, the DUP and the UUP, to resist the protocol, to resist the implementation of the Windsor Framework by any means possible. And that led to the breakup of Stormont. So we did have unionist unity that came out of those meetings in the Ulster Hall. So it was a good time. It was a good time for activism, and it was a good time, like I say, for unionism, and every shade of unionism, from the man on the street to those in political power, were involved in that.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was a wonder. Sorry, I seem to be wrong. Could you just mute yourself there? You have. Uh, just bear with me for 2 seconds. I'm having some technical difficulties. Had echoes there. Bear with me. You've got to excuse me. Whenever software works, whenever it doesn't, I don't seem to be able to stop this. I'm going to try something else. Bear with me, people. Bear with me. No, it seemed that they seem to have sort of went down. If you could just let me know in the live chat if there's any echoes in my voice. If there's no echoes in my voice, if anybody could let me know. Jim Werner, could you just let me know if there's any echoes in my voice on the live stream here? Um, just bear with me for a second or two. No, I'm not sure I'm not getting any feedback there. So I'm just going to try to put on my speakers here and see can I work it this way. Just bear with me. Um, you get it. It's okay. Good man, Jim. Good man. And I bear with me. Put my audio on this way. Speakers. Defect. Communication. Right. Okay. That gives me sound back again, does it? Right, okay. So let me just play something here to I test the sound and I'll be back in a wee second. Sorry about this here, technical difficulties. I'm going to play something from something that I did just a few weeks ago. I was invited up into the fountain area of Londonderry over the Siege of Derry commemoration and the events that happened in the small fountain estate. And I made a small documentary about the events and the William King Memorial and who the band's named after and the reason for the name of the band. So I just really want to play I see there's an echo now. Thanks very much, but I'll resolve that as I play this music. So bear with me. A little clip from the William King Memorial whilst I try to resolve this little problem. So I'm just going to try now. Again, I'm getting an echo. Nobody else seems to be getting an echo. Ron, can I ask you for a second here? I'm going to have to stop this, enter back in again. I don't know what's happened to the software. There seems to be some sort of technical difficulty. So if I uh, go out, send you a link, and could you click on that link and come back in again? Yeah. Sorry about this. People, for some reason or other, there's something technically happened beyond my control. So I'll do that now, Ron. Okay, I'll just close this screen.